We left off on Tzadi Vav Amud Aleph towards the bottom. It's a new question. Amalei Rav Ilish L'Rava. 6 lines in the bottom on Tzadi Vav Amud Aleph. Amalei Rav Ilish L'Rava. Ha'imel Avdei Seiva Hishel Imparasi. I don't think we did this, right? Somebody said to Zeved, go. It's Shimon had a Eved and he had a cow, and he was lending his cow to Reuven, and he also had his Eved, and he told his Eved, go along with my par that I'm lending to Reuven. I want you also to work for Reuven. Mao. This question is a good question, whether you hold a shliach is like the owner, like which we had in the previous discussion of whether a owner can send along a shliach to do work for the shomer, and that will be considered a baal of imay, as if the bailim, the owner, is working together with the shomer. So there's one madam who says shulchan adam k'maisa, and one says not. But over here we're talking about where he sent an eved. So an eved might be distinguished in 2 ways. Even according to the mandam who says that if a owner sends a shliach, that's considered as if he himself is working by the shomer, and therefore patters if there's a einus. Shliach, the bar mitzvah, that's only a shliach, that he's mechoyev in mitzvahs, so he's considered a proper replacement for the owner. He's in the same category. Eved can't be a shliach, only a regular gadol who's a Yisrael. Aval Eved the bar mitzvah, but maybe an Eved is not considered the same category. So when the owner sends him along, it's not considered as if there's someone working along with the shomer, as if the owner is working with the shomer. Maybe the other way around. Even according to the mandam who says the shliach would not be considered ba'al of imay. Hani mili shliach, that's only by a shliach. Aval eved yad eved ki yad rabbi dami. But eved, an eved is considered even more directly to be a representative of his adon, of his master, because like if an eved finds something, it goes directly to his adon. In different ways, the eved is considered a direct, his yad, his shlichus is even stronger than a normal shlichus. Okay, so that's the question. Now another question. We don't have an answer for this. We've had, I don't know if you remember, but we had about 15 questions before this without an answer. There's another question. So this is really not a question that has to do with what we've been talking about, Baal of Imay. This is a different question. As we know, a husband has the right to get the peiros, to get the produce from his wife's nichsei maluk, the property the wife brings into the marriage. The husband can use it, and he gets what it produces. So the question is, what is his status guarding that property? The property that the nichsei maluk that his wife brought in. Shoyel, that's the question of Rabbi Chama is, Shoyel havi yisayich havi, on number base, is he considered that he's a borrower, or is he considered a renter? Good morning, Menachem. We just started the bottom line of Tzadi Vav Amud Aleph. Boy Rami Bar Chama. Last few words. Rami Bar Chama asked the following question. The fact that a husband is considered has a kinyan peiros in his wife's nichsei malug, does that give him the status of a borrower, or is he considered like he's someone who's renting? That means the husband technically has to give the wife something in return for the fact that he gets the peiros. I think he has to be paid to her if she's captured. So do we consider that as if he's paying for the right to get her to get the use of her property, or do we say he's a shoyel because that in the end he's not paying for it directly? It's an entitlement that the Chachamim gave him. All he has is a kinyan peiros. Now it happens to be the Chachamim were masakin in return for the fact that he's going to be paid to her, but the two are not. It's not a payment. It's not that if he If he's not paid, then he loses it. It's the Chachamim misakin it. So that's the question. But the bottom line is, whatever the svara behind it is, the question is the Baal's rights to his wife's Paris, is that that is of a shayl or a seichel? And again, just to remind, a shayl is going to be chayiv in einsin. If he's a seicher, if he's a renter, if we pass on that a seicher is the same as a shem sacher, then he'll have to pay for gneva vaveda, but he'll be potter for einsin. Amar Rava, lefum churfa shabeshta. Rava says because of his Rav Chama's sharpness, he went down the wrong path. He made a mistake because it doesn't make a difference. In either case, his wife certainly provides services to her husband. So it's always going to be the case that his rights to use her property, it's not going to make a difference whether it's a sheicher who's chayiv in gneva veda or if it's a shayl who's chayiv in einsin. In either case, he's going to be potter for either of them, whether it's a einus or whether it's a gneva veda, because she's working with him at the time. She's an owner who's working with him. Ella, so the Gemara says it must be kikami boile l'ram b'chama. The question of Ram Becham must be different than what Rava assumed it was. The question was the agamina para b'hadur naspa. We're talking about a case where the wife had rented her para to her husband while they were engaged, before they were married. So it was not a schirus b'bailim. He didn't have any rights to her. She wasn't providing any services to him while they were engaged. B'hadur, unless maybe it was Yehuda where we've come across it, but Galil, I think. B'hadur nasba, and then afterwards he married her. So it's the Aleph. Mai, what's the din? Shayel Havi, Isaicher Havi. Is he considered Shayel or Isaicher? So now, Shayel Havi, if now he becomes a Shayel when he marries her, V'asya She'el B'Bailim, Mafka Schiris, Shalai B'Bailim. That means prior to their marriage, he had rented this para from her. Now they got married. Now all of a sudden it becomes something that he has a kinyan Paris. So now if it's a new thing, it changes status. Before it was a schiras, and now it becomes a shayla. This is a new shayla, and the shayla started when they got married, and that was a shayla b'bailim, and therefore he'll be potter even for einsim. Or maybe he's a seicher. Schiras to get kaima, and since he was already a seicher before they got married, as we know, the heter of b'bailim has to be in place when the schiras starts. And since when they started the schiras was before they got engaged, before they got married, while they were engaged, so it wasn't b'bailim because she wasn't yet providing services to him. So Zakta Gemara, it's interesting. It's coming out counterintuitive that if it's a seicher, then he's going to be chayiv to pay. I'm sorry, no, it's right. If he's a seicher, then he's chayiv. If he's shayil, then he's potter. Shayil usually has more responsibility than the seicher. But in this case, since the schiras started earlier, it won't be it won't have the heter of Baal Avima. So Dr. Gemara. The Gemara says that it really shouldn't make a difference. The Gemara says, really, why should that be different? Whether he's a shayl, that we say that now that when he got married, so it became a she'ela situation, that takes away and makes it a new din from the schiras that was before, and therefore it's considered to be she'ela b'bayim. Let's say, even though he was already a seicher from her, he had already rented the cow, and now he got married to her, and now it changed to a new schiras because of a schiras of that he has kinyan peris and a nichsei malug. It's still a new schiras. So we should say this new schiras that takes place when he gets married has a din bal avima. We don't look at it as if the schiras started earlier. We should look at it as a new schiras. So the Gemara says that nafkamina doesn't really make sense. So we have to give a third option of what Ram Bechama's question was. What the nafkamina is whether a husband is considered a seicher or a pile. We're talking about where Reuven's wife had rented a cow from Shimon. She had rented a cow, V'hadar Naspa, and then she married Reuven. So now Reuven gets the rights to use this para that she had rented from Shimon. And we're going Valiba de Rabban and the Amri. So now he becomes like a subleaser, a sub renter, or a sub borrower for what she had borrowed from Shimon. And Valiba de Rabban the Amri Shoel Mishal Masoich Leiti Bailach. And now this is a question that we had way back in a couple of months ago, where someone is a sub renter, a sub shimer of a first shimer. So according to the Rabbanan, they say that if someone rented, and then now we're talking about a different case. Reuven had rented something, and then he lent it as a shayl to Shimon, and then there was an oinus. So Shimon is a shayl, and there was an oinus. He's chayiv to pay an oinus, but the original owner had rented it to Shimon. I'm sorry, to Reuven. So the original owner has no expectations of being paid for an oinus because he had rented it. So what's the din? So we said, according to the Rabbanan, the shayil mishal musaycha. The second level, Shimon, who had borrowed from Reuven, he's going to have to deal with Reuven. He's going to pay Reuven as a shayil where there was an einus, and Reuven is going to go back to the owner and say, "Listen, I'm a shaycher. There was an einus, so I'm potter." So according to that, leiti boil. So our case, it's not going to make a difference whether it's a shayil or a shaycher. The vade shayil of a that will certainly be considered, since the husband's interaction is with her as the sub, since she's the one who's lending it to him, and she is certainly working for him at the time, so he won't have to pay her because it's shayil b'bailim. The question will be according to Rabbi Yosef, that he says when you have a sub borrower, that the borrower goes back to the original owner, and he would have to pay, even though that owner had rented it out. Since the renter had lent it out as a sheila, they go back to the original owner. So now this husband, who has a kinyan paris, will go back to the person that his wife had borrowed from. My shayil havi. If we say he's a shayil, havi. If he's a shayil, so then he has to. It's not. Then it's going to be a. Then it's going to be an einus. Even though it's an einus, he's still chayiv. Or if he's a seicher, there's no. We've managed to eliminate the she'ela b'bailim or the schirus b'bailim by talking about where she had rented it from someone else and then lent it to him. So therefore, and we're going to according to the Manda Amr that his what do you call it? His responsibility lies with the original owner, and therefore it preempts what his deal is with her. It preempts that there's no bailim, but it's going to be a question: is he a shayl or a seicher? If he's a shayl, then he has to pay for the einus. If he's a seicher, then he doesn't. So that would be the question of Rami Bar Chama. Amar Rava says this whole question is not a question. Baal lo shayl havi lo seicher havi. He's neither considered to be a borrower or a seicher. El lo keach havi. He's considered as if he purchased the rights to the kinyan paris for the time that they're married. And where do we see that? Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina. Usha Eskino, they made a takan in Usha. We've come across this a number of times in Ksubis and Bava Kama. A woman who sold the nichse milug while her husband is alive. Her husband really is the Yerush. So normally, if someone sells something prior to Yerusha, the Yerush has no rights to it. But the husband, in addition to his rights of Yerusha, he also has the rights to Kinyan Paris. If she sells the nichse milug while he's alive, umesa, and then she dies, the husband has such strong rights, he's considered a lekeach. It's considered as if when his kinyan paris makes him as if he's a lekeach, and therefore he can go take it away from the person that she sold it to. So we'd say similarly the same thing over here. A husband who is using his wife's nichse milug, his kinyan is not a shayl, it's not a seicha, but rather it's as if he's a lekeach of the kinyan paris, and therefore it's not going to be a question of whether, well, the way we just made it, whether he's going to be responsible to the person that she had rented it from. If there's an einus, he has no responsibility to her at all, as if he bought it from her. Boy Ram Bacham, Baal b'nichse ishtai mima. another continuation of this question of kinyan Paris of the husband in his wife's nechsei maluk. If that, the way Rashi explains this case is, if a wife was Yerush a bunch of property from her father, and unbeknownst to her, some of that property were coins that were her hektish, that the father had been maktish, and now the husband now goes into her rishus, she's Yerush it, and the husband gets a kinyan Paris in it. So who has a din of me'ilah from this Yerusha? Amarava, man limot. Amarava asks, who you suggesting should be over on me'ilah from having hana or misappropriating hektish? Limol baal, if you want to say the husband, since he automatically gets a kinyan Paris in her nichsei malug, so he's the mal when it comes into her shos, the ter nichalei dilikni, surla nichalei dilikni. How could he be kind of something that he doesn't intend to be kind of? He doesn't want to be kind of something that's going to cause him to be over me'ilah. So he's never kind of in the first place. Her as well, really the same answer. That ter namile nichalei dilikni. She also is not intending to be Yerush, something that's going to cause her isser of me'ilah by having it come into her shus. Nimalu bezdin. So the Gemara comes up with a very interesting cheshbon. So maybe bezdin. This is a din, a takanas chachamim, that a husband gets kinyan Paris in his wife's nichsei malug. Like we said, it's in return for the fact that he has to be paider if she's caught. So Rashi says maybe bezdin. Maybe bezdin. Rashi says nimalu bezdin. Every bezdin in each dar is responsible for all takanas chachamim that happen in that time. They have the ability to decide that they want to go along with it or not. All the takanas, anything that's imposed on the tzibur, they're responsible for. It's as if they were misak in this. We want to say it's like a wild thing. We're saying that the chachamim of that dar, since they're responsible for any takanas chachamim, and this was a takanas chachamim that he should get a kinyan Paris in this hektish, maybe Bezdin is over on me'ilah, and they're going to have to bring a carbon me'ilah. So even that, you have basically the same teretz. Ki avdu rabbanon takanta v'amu ba'alei kechavi letereli surely avdu rabbanon takanta. The problem, that which we say that he's considered as a lekeach, as if he gets a kinyan in this ketchum, they never intended it to be in a case where it's going to cause them to be over on me'ilah. You're looking, you have a furrowed brow, Rafal. You're finding this very bizarre that Bezdin should be chayiv me'ilah for a takana that they made. And then the Gemara answers, of course, they never intended it in that circumstance. It's a very strange. I don't remember ever seeing a Gemara suggesting that Chachamim are somehow personal liability for a takana that they made that results in something untoward happening. And we're saying that Einachanami, of course, they never were misaken under those circumstances, even though it will still be the case that he's going to get a kinyan in that l'chayra, he gets a kinyan in that nichsei malug. Zak the Gemara. Ella amarabba Allah amarava bal mal l'chashiyotzi miyadi l'chashiyotzi. The bal is mal. The me'ilah happens not by force of law. As soon as the father dies and the daughter is Yerush, and now the husband gets a right, has a din of a lekeach in the nichsei malug. It's only he has no intention to be kind at that point, to be chayiv for the kachim in me'ilah. It's only when he actually expends that money, then anyone who expends money of kachim, even unintentionally, has it in me'ilah. Like anyone who has chulin, that it has hektish that he uses for chulin, even though it's unintentional, at that point he becomes chayiv. Iboilu. Kichish basar machmas malacha mai. If a shayel borrowed something, and the animal He was using the animal. The animal got weakened. It got worth less. It used to be worth $100. He used it for a month, and he borrowed it and he used it for a month, and now it's only worth $75. It got weakened. From the fact that you're questioning about if the shoyl used the animal and got worth less, whether Yechayiv or Potter, it sounds like certainly if the animal died, which was a bigger damage, then he would certainly be Chayiv. Name a lay, let him say to him, Lav ukma bechilta sheilta. L'chayra, he should be Potter. And this I think we've mentioned this before, that a shoyl should be Potter altogether when something happens because of malach. Because he says to him, I didn't borrow from you in order to put it away to pasture, to keep it safe. I borrowed from you to work. If something happens from working, it's not my issue. It's not the shemer's problem. Even though the shemer is chayav einsin, but einsin, he's taking upon himself certain responsibilities. But the work, that's what he borrowed it for. So if I can't use it to work, then what is the purpose of the she'ela? So Rava says, like we know the halacha is that a shayl is potter from even from mesa machzor malacha, not just if it got worth less, but if it dies while it's working, that's the exception. Even though a shayl is chayav einsin, but he's potter from mesa machzor malacha. The amalei lav look makilta sheilta. Like we said, the svara, according to Rava, he would tell him, I didn't borrow it to leave it in the side and not use it. Who gave the shol naga mechavri? There was a person who borrowed a axe from his friend, Itbar, and it broke. Also, Kamed Rav, he came to Rava. Amle zil aisi sahadi delav shanis bei ve'ifter. He said, "Go bring Edim." He's saying to go bring Edim and not make a shvua. This is a machlokes rishonim. Does it mean to say that he has to bring Edim, that he's not believed with a shvua, or is it that we're talking about according to the Manda Amr that you always have to bring Edim if there are Edim? I think it was Rabbi Baravin. But in any case, he says to him, listen, if you, the Shaimer, can prove that it happened without you having done anything wrong, without you being Paisheya, that it's Mesa Machmas Lacha, and you're going to be Potter like Rav Ashit. What happens if he doesn't have Edim? Toshma. Dahu Gaver the Shol Naga Mechaver. There was a person who borrowed a axe from his friend, the Itva, and it broke. Asal Kamed Rav came to Rav Amli. Zil Shlumle Narga Ma'alya. So this is a case. It doesn't mention it specifically, but we're talking about where he was a pesheya. So now he has to pay for the axe. So Rav said to him, you have to pay for a brand new axe. Amalei Rav Kahana Rav Asi Rav Dina Hachi. Is this the halacha? What do you mean? Why does he have to pay for a brand new axe? Let him take the broken axe and take it to the repair shop. It costs $5 to repair. And you only have to pay the $5. Why do you have to buy him a brand new axe? And then you deal with the broken pieces. You return the axe and then pay for what it costs to fix it. Rav was quiet. The Hilchos of Kahana Rav Yisi, the Mahadalei Tavre Yumamal the May Mono. That Einachanami, the halacha is that you don't return the Shaimer who's Mechoyev because of his Shia does not have to provide a new axe, but he just gives the money to fix the old axe. Who gathered the shol davla mechaber? There was a person who borrowed a bucket from his friend. Itbar, and it broke. Also, made the Papa. He came to our Papa. Amalei, I see the hadi. ISIS hadi loishanis after. Again, bring edim that you didn't do anything, that you were not a pesheya, that it was mesa machs malach. It broke from normal work, and then you'll be potter, which is the halacha of Rav. Who gathered the shol shunra mechaber? There's a person who borrowed a cat from his friend. He needed some extermination services, so he borrowed a cat. It was a Tom and Jerry situation. All the mice somehow got together. They came together and killed the cat. They went to ask Ravashi, what's the din? What's the din in such case? This is what the cat died doing what it loved to do. It was chasing mice, and it died in its proper work environment. There's no what is it called, OSHA violations here. That's what a cat's supposed to do. He's supposed to chase mice. This time he lost. Or do you say no? This is not a normal situation. This is more like an inus, that it's not something that's expected. Amler Modchel Ravashi. Hachi Amar Avim Mihagunya Mishmei Rava. Gavra the Noshi Katlua Loy Dina Veloy Daina. Ika. Loy Dina Veloy Daina. He said a rule: if a man is fighting with a woman and the woman kills him, there's no recourse. There's nothing to be done about it, because a woman is never expected to beat a man. So it's simple same thing over here. When a cat is killed by the mice, that's something that the Shimer had no reason to expect would happen, and there's no pshia. So therefore, it's a mesa machs malacha. It's not something that Shimer could have known. Ikda Amri, there's another pshat in what happened over here. Achal ach rituva v'chavel umis. What happened here was not that the mice ganged up on the cat, but rather the cat was having such luck. He ate so many mice that it caused him to get sick and die. Yochel Rashi would come ayimba. Chai gavna mai. What's the din? Is it considered a pshia that the shamer should have made sure he now doesn't eat so much that he dies? A man, Rashi explains, this is not the same case. Rashi explains, where is it? The Nashi Katlua, Baal Be'ilas Harbe Omes. We're talking about a man who dies from overindulgence of being born a lot of women. There's no liability on the part of the woman for killing him. It's his own overindulgence. That's something totally unexpected. Similarly, a cat who ate so many mice that it caused him to die is not something the Shemer could have anticipated, so he's not a Pesheya. Amar Amarov. Hi man the boy Lemishal Midi Mechavri, the lifter. Someone who wants to borrow something from his friend, but he doesn't want to be responsible for an einus. Namely, he should say to him, Ashki and Maya. He should tell the person who's lending him the thing, if you go to borrow a drill from your friend, and it looks a little wonky, the drill, and you're worried that it's going to break, there's going to be an einus, or lightning's going to strike it, you tell the owner, give me a drink of water. If he gives him a drink of water while he's getting the drill, so then the borrower will be pater on einstein, because it will be baal of imay. It will be that the owner is working with him to have a sheila b'bailim. But if the owner is smart, Nemalei shal bereisha. First you borrow the drill, and I'll give you a drink afterwards, because like we said in our mission at the beginning of the parak, the status of being a ball of imay, that he has to be working for him to pater a shayla and einstein, has to be in place at the time of the sheila. So each one has a way. The borrower can say, listen, the borrower, I don't think his yad el yain. If he says no, you get me the drink, or else I'm not doing it, then there's nothing you can do about it. So he says to him, Shal b'reish v'had ashkiach. He says you do it differently. Do the borrowing first, and that way you're not going to be part of sheilav about it. Amarava, mikri dardaki, someone who teaches children, shasla. What is a shasla again? Noite krum lamechza, the type of people like basically gardeners that work for the city. Tavcha, a butcher, v'umna, someone who's a bloodletter. Safer Masa, the barber of the town. All of these are people that are hired by the city, and they work for everyone in the city. As long as they are working the middle of their jobs, if they ever lend something to someone in the city, they're considered that they're working for everyone in the city, since they're city employees. So therefore, anything that they lend, it will always be considered, the shomer will be pater on einstein, because it's considered sheila b'bayim. Amalei Rabban l'Rava shalon mar. The Rabbanan, meaning the people who came to hear shiurim from Rava, said, you can lend us. I'm sorry. He said to him, you are considered as if you are working for us. It's as if you're lending your work to us, meaning that which you give us shiurim, that's something that you're providing to everyone. You're the Rebbe, so you're providing for all of us. So if it should be the case that you were ever to lend something to us, and there was an einus, we'd be pater because you're working for us by giving us shiurim. Ikbid. Rava was not happy to hear this. Amulhu lafku mimunoi kabisu. You're trying to make me lose money. That if I lend you something, you're not gonna have to pay if it's an einus because it's considered like I'm working for you. Adarabba, hatan shalton li. You're really working for me. As we know, the Gemara says that mi talmidei yotzei mikulam. So he's learning just as much from them. He's learning more from them that they're learning from him. He's the one who gives the shir certainly benefits the most, and he's the one who has control. I can decide what we're going to learn, and you have to listen to me. So I'm the one in control of this relationship. So you're the ones who are working for me. So if you were to lend something to me, it would be considered she'ela b'bayla. Sak Gemara v'lohi. Gemara says neither one of them is right in this little spat between Rav and his Talmidim. I mean, sometimes each one of them is right. Iu sha'aluhu b'yuma dekala. At the time of Yuma dekala, meaning prior to the Yom Tovim, when it was set that the Rabbanim had to give a regular shir, so then he didn't have a choice of what to say shir on. So then he is considered to be working for them. Enu shilulei b'shar yume. But the rest of the time, Taka, he could decide what to learn, and therefore they are considered to be working for it. Mereva bar Chanina, Uger Kudnaisa Beichuzoi. Reb Marema bar Chanina rented a donkey by Beichuzoi. Nofik Ludluya, and they went out to put the stuff on the donkey to use it. Nofik Ludluya Tuna Badai, and he went to help them load up the donkey. Pashuba. They did a pshia, miss, and the donkey died. Also, the Kamei de Rava, Marema came to Rava and said, they did a pshia, I want them to pay for what they did to my donkey. Chayvinu, he said the chay. Amule Rabbanon l'Rava, pshia b'baylim the chayr, it's a pshia b'baylim, right? He was helping them load it up. Why did you say the chay if they're potter? So Ichsef, he was embarrassed that he didn't think of that. L'sayfik loy milsa, the lamesa tuna hava, the nafik. That Marema didn't go out to help them. He went out to watch them while they were loading up. He wasn't helping them. He wanted to make sure they didn't overload it. And it sounds like they really did, and they were peshe and they killed it. So it wasn't a pshia b'baylim, it was a pshia, regular pshia, and therefore that's the reason they're chayiv. This again, we see the klal that even when a Amayra makes a mistake, he has siyata d'shmaya that his psak is correct. But the Gemara questions the whole premise of this. According to the Mandam that Pshiva Bailam is potter, that's why he was embarrassed that he said that the chayiv. We had the whole Gemara earlier, whether this din of tour of ball of imay extends even to Pshia, and we came out of Tzemach. But according to the Mandam that says, if you're Pesheya, even if ball of imay is chayiv, well, they should have been chayiv even if he was working with him. What was he worried about? So Gemara, loy mifsha pashuba. We're not talking about where there was a pshia, alei gnuve ignav. It's talking about where the animal was stolen, umesa kedarko bei ganav, and it died while it was by the ganav. For also lekamei de rava v'chayvinu. He was mechayev. V'amalei rabbanu l'rava gneva b'bailami. That's what they said. It was a gneva b'bailam, not a pshia b'bailam. And then we had the whole discussion, not because of pshia, because of gneva, and since it was a schiris, he'd be chayev. They would be chayiv for a gneva, but if it's bebailim, then it's pot. Okay, I'm entitled, I think, to about another 9 minutes. If you don't mind, we're going to look at the Mishnah. Hashayelas hapara, someone who borrows a para. Shalach chatzi yom, b'sacha chatzi yom. If he borrows it for half a day, he agrees to borrow it for half a day. He agrees half of the day it should be rented to him. It means he said normally it costs $2 a day. He says, the first half of the day I want it to be shula by me till 12 o'clock. You're lending it to me, and then from 12 o'clock and on, I'm paying you $1 for the other half of the day. Or he says for today, for Monday, it's going to be lent to me for free, and for Tuesday, I'm paying you the $2. Third case, sachar achas v'sholach. The two animals, and one was rented and one was borrowed. Umesa hamashal, and the animal died. All these cases, there was a partial lending and a partial schiras, and then the animal died. So for the schiras, he'll be pater if it died. But the sheila he's chayiv. Hamashal oyma she'ula mesa. The mashal says the one who lent it says that the day, I mean, the first two cases where it was half a day lent and half a day rented, or 1 day lent and half a day, or another day rented, he says it died on the day that it was shula, and therefore you chayiv to pay me back. The second case was on the day that it was shula was mesa, shula mesa, or at the time that it was shula mesa. I'm sorry, the first one was She'ula Mesa, meaning it was two animals. He said first the animal that was She'ula was Mesa. He addressed the last case first. Or B'yom She'ula Mesa, or B'shasha She'ula Mesa. He did them backwards. So it was in all of them, the lender claims that it was the time that was most beneficial to him, that it was either the animal that was borrowed, or at the times that the animal that was rented and borrowed was the time it was borrowed, and therefore you should have to pay me. And the borrower or renter said, the shomer said, I don't know. Chai. So then the shomer has to pay. The Gemara Rashi says because it's a bari v'shema, so we go with the bari. The Gemara is going to say a different pshat also. Hasoicher aimer, and a second set of cases. Hasoicher aimer shvura mesa, b'yom shahisa skura mesa, b'shasha hisa skura mesa. Now we're talking about where the shomer is the one who's a bari. He says it was on the day that it was the animal that was rented, or on the day that it was rented, or at the time that it was rented, but not when it was a shayla. And therefore on potter, ba'ala amen yadea. In this case, the lender is the one who's not sure. He says, I don't know. Potter. Then he's going to be potter. If one says it's shula and the other one says it's chura, meaning the owner says it was a time of shayla and therefore yechayiv, and the shomer says it was a time of rental and therefore I'm potter. Yishava hasaycher sheshchura mesa. Then it's in the hands of the seicher. The Gemara is going to explain what shvua he makes, but he makes a shvua that it was a b'pashas, right? It's a meitzim chaber levaraya. The owner is trying to get the shomer to pay, so he'll tell him. He says, if you want me to pay, I'm going to make a shvua that it was while it was chura, and then it'll be pot. But if both of them say they don't know, then it's going to be sumchus that says mamana mutal basafik chalkin, and it's going to be chalk. So sham mina, we see from here, monoli biyadcha. If someone says, Reuben says to Shimon, you have $100 of mine in your hand. And Shimon says, I don't know. Chayiv. That you chayiv, right? Was saying that if in the first din of the Gemara, where the owner, the lender, is saying that it was while it was she'ula and therefore you're chayiv, that the shomer has to pay because the bari v'shema, so the bari can be mitzi from the shema. So you see, the same thing would apply. It's the same din of bari v'shema. If someone borrowed from another person, and the person who was the lender is saying that the borrower owes him money, and the borrower says, "I'm not sure if I ever borrowed money from you," he has to pay. Lemit Yev Tiyufta der Rav Nachman, the Chaydish Shvan Rav Nachman, the Itma. Manili biyat valam eni adeya of Rav Yudam Chayiv. They say taka bari v'shema is chayiv. Rav Nachman Rav Yechonami Potter, and Rav Nachman Rav Yehuda say you Potter. So our Mishnah L'chayr is shver on the Manda Amar, who says that bari v'shema is Potter, that you can't be mitzi mammon from a shema if the claimant, if the one who's making the claim is a bari, and the person who you're trying to get money from is a shema. So Rav Nachman, the answer will be like Rav Nachman said. We're talking about where there was already a chi of shvua between them. Over here also it's talking about where there is a prior shvua in place that the shomer has to make, and therefore, since he's unable to make a shvua because he's a shema, therefore he's going to be chayiv to pay. Hechidami esek shvua. How do you have that there's a prior shvua that this shomer has to make, where he's saying any adeya? I don't know if it was a shayl or a seicha. If it died when I was a shayl or a seicha, kedama Rava. It's like Rava. Kedama Rava. Manali biyad chavalame ein l'cha biyadi el chamisha. Someone says to another person, Reuben says to Shimon, you have $100 of mine in your hand. And Shimon says back to him, no, I only have 50. But the rest, I'm not sure about. So in that case, since he's a moida b'mixus, he's being moida on 50, so therefore he already has to make a shvua. So he doesn't get to say on the other half, I'm a eini yadeya, it's a bari v'shema. Rather, we say in that case he has to pay, because since he's a eini yadeya and he already has to make a shvua, he's not able to make a shvua, he has to pay. So mishkachas law. So how do you apply that to our Mishnah? Mishkachas law reisha bebeis v'seifa begimel. The first case of the Mishnah, meaning the first two cases, where he rented for part of the time as a seicher and part of the time as a shoyl. So you'll have to have two animals, and the seifa where he said one animal was a shoyl and one was a seicher and a skura, and they don't know which is which. Now you'll have to have three animals. Reisha bebeis the amalei beis paras masati lach. I said I gave you two paras. Palga the yuma b'sheilu, palga the yuma b'schiris, and part of it, each one was part of the day. A shayla and part of a skiris. Inami chadjum b'shayla, chadjum b'skiris. So one day was a shayla and one day there was a skiris. Umesu travayu b'iden shayla. And the owner, the lender, is saying both of them happened at the time of shayla. Therefore, you're chayiv on both of them. For amalei shayl, and the borrower says back to him, chada in b'iden shayla mesa. You're right. One of them died during the time of shayla. V'idach lo yadan. The other one I don't know. So that would be the case according to Rav Nachman. Even if you hold that Bari V'Shema does not have to pay over here, he's not a regular Bari V'Shema since he already has to make a shvua because he conceded about the other animal, the seifa. And the seifa where there were two animals has to be where there were gimel. The amalei gimel person satilach beis b'sheila v'achas b'schiris, two a sheila and one b'schiris. Umesu hani tarti de sheila. And the owner says that the two that were sheila, those are the ones that died. I'm Allah shal, and the shell answer back. In Chodesh Eilos Mesa, it's true that one of the shelas died. I know that I'm being masking to you that one that was shal died, and therefore have to pay for that. Either Chaliyadani the shela Mesa the kaim eschirasi. I don't know if the other one that died is was sheula, and therefore the one that's alive is the schiris. Either schiris Mesa or the kaim sheili, or maybe the one that was a schiris died, and the one that's shal is left. We'll just go one more minute. According to Ram Bachama, who holds that there's never a Shavua Shaimrim without having both a Shemira b'mixus, a Kfira b'mixus, and Hoidah b'mixus. So this that we want to say that there's a Shavua Shaimrim, it's going to mishkachas lo reisha b'gimel v'seifa b'dalet. You're going to have gimel and dalet. Reisha b'gimel d'amalei gimel parson sati lach pliga diyum palga diyuma b'sheelu palga diyum b'schiras. I gave you three that were half sheila and half schiras. Inami chadjum b'sheila v'chadjum b'schiras. So one day sheila and one day schiras. Umesu gimu kula b'idin sheila. And the owner says that all three were the time of sheila. Amlei sheil chadalei hayu devarim me'olam. And one of them he says lahayu devarim me'olam because according to Ram Bachama, you have to have a kfira, a full-fledged kfira on part in order for there to be a din of ma'adim mitzvahs. B'chada in b'idin sheila meisa b'idach le'yadane. One of them taka died by she'elos. Therefore, you have a kfira and a hoidah. V'idach le'yadani b'idin she'ela mesa b'idin schiris mesa. And the third one is the one that I'm not sure about. That's where Rav Nachman would say, because he can't swear, he makes a shvua. Sefer b'dala damale the old person satel gimel she'ela chada b'schiris mesa hana gimel the she'ela amale she'el chada l'hadam. One I don't know at all. B'chada in the she'ela mesa one. So one he's being kafir, you have a full-fledged kfira. B'chada in the she'ela mesa, and one is a full-fledged hoidah. V'idach liyadani the shchiris mesa the kaima she'ela, the she'ela mesa the kaima the shchiris. Tachshin yachalava shava mishalm. In that case, because he can't make a shvua, he will make. Since he can't make a shvua, he's going to have to pay. Shkayach, thank you for the extra couple of minutes. And Bez Hashem, either tonight I'll try to twist someone's arm to learn with me, or we'll learn tomorrow morning at 6:15 in shul.
Tonight happens to work for me, so I guess we'll be in touch on the chat later.
Okay, great. I would like to. I want to get a little bit in place before.